We've got ones that can see. Welcome, everybody, to today's show. If you haven't heard yet, Pope Francis has passed away, or as this article and most of the articles out there say, the truth in plain sight, Pope Francis exited the world stage, because most of these people actually exit the world stage when they tell us they die. They pick significant dates to do so as part of rituals, of course, and what a coincidence that Pope Francis died on the evening into the morning hours of Easter. Now, if you haven't seen my video yet on the Pope prophecy and the last Pope, it's available on my other channel called Nations Conspire. That's where I upload most of my main content as of right now, between that channel and this channel. So make sure you subscribe to it. I will leave it linked below, because this video isn't about the passing of the Pope and any conspiracies revolving around. This is actually a tribute to the Pope, because some of you may know when one of these people exits the world stage, from George Bush to David Rockefeller to Lord Rothschild, I usually do a tribute video, which really is an accumulation of a lot of the things that people probably forgot about that are connected to these globalists. And Pope Francis, over the last 10 years or so since I've been creating content, even though I'm a new content creator, Pope Francis has been involved in so many satanic agendas that he's begun to normalize. And this picture really describes it best. The Pope holding this young child, and, well, you can only imagine the things that this Pope was involved in while he was walking the earth. And of course, he's probably still walking the earth. But I want to go through some of the agendas, because what we're going to hear over the next couple of days and weeks with the tributes that come in and people watching this on national television, distracted by it, is, of course, praise for the Pope. But nobody will remember all the satanic stuff that the Pope has been involved in, and I remember all of it. In fact, I'll show it to you right now. So right off the bat, of course, most people remember all of these images of the Pope standing in front of this demonic imagery at the Vatican, which really looks like Lucifer rising from the pit. But we'll start with this one, because this is one of my favorite ones that was just right out in the open. When Vlad Zelensky met with the Pope and, of course, gave him this gift, which was supposed to be the Virgin Mother Mary holding Jesus. But, of course, instead of holding Jesus, you just see a black blank image in the arms of Mother Mary. Of course, this is depicting the Antichrist, right in plain sight. And what did the Pope do? Well, he graciously accepted the portrait. He didn't say, well, this is a little bit weird. Why would you blur out Jesus? I mean, I'm the Pope, right? I'm supposed to represent Christianity. I'm supposed to represent Peter's church, right? Well, of course, we know he doesn't really represent the church. We know that he and the Vatican are at the top of the pyramid, the top of the food chain, working hand in hand with Israel to bring about this new world order. Of course, we've seen the Pope do the hidden hand symbolism, because these secret societies are all connected, whether it's the Jesuit order, whether it's Freemasonry, the Eastern Star. They all do the same signs and symbols because they're all connected to one another. So you can see him doing the hidden hand out in the open. He wasn't just itching his pectoral muscle. We've seen the Pope do the 666 hand sign, which, of course, used to be one of the more obvious signs that we could expose. We could see all the collages of celebrities over the years who always hold the 666 hand sign up and even hold it over their eye. But most people don't care anymore, because Donald Trump openly holds up the 666 hand sign. In fact, it's one of his mottos that he always holds this thing up. It's supposed to represent MAGA. So now, conveniently, most people don't look at it as a satanic hand sign. We've seen him hold up the devil horns in the past. In fact, we've even seen him on Time magazine, the People's Pope, where they strategically put the word time behind his head the way that they did, so it would look like devil horns on the top of the Pope's head. And why not? The Pope even quipped before in the past, "I am the devil," the Pope has said, acknowledging his detractors by calling himself the devil. And if that's not enough for you, how about this ritual that occurred, where the Pope called upon Lucifer right out in the open, and the only people that seemed to catch it were people like me and you, while the rest of the world watched the Mass and said that we were conspiracy theorists, when he openly, and they're all openly, calling on Lucifer, calling Jesus the son of Satan.
Pope Francis, the head of the Jesuit order, announced through his cantor the imminent emergence, the near advent of the coming to light of the Antichrist.
Lucifer matutinus indeniat, ille in quam Lucifer qui nescito casum, Christus filius tuus, qui regressus ab inferis, humano generis serenus illuxit, et tecum vivit et regnat in saecula saeculorum.
During this pronouncement, the cantor called Lucifer God, claiming Lucifer to be the father of Jesus Christ. The cantor acknowledged Lucifer as the Antichrist himself and worshipped him. To this, a great crowd and the whole world sang, This was the 3D ceremony that the Pope wanted to be seen worldwide. The announcement to the world, the son of perdition, this way comes.
Noct illuminatio mea, supernis luminaribus misceatur, flammas eius, Lucifer matutinus indeniat, ille in quam Lucifer qui nescito casum.
It doesn't get much more obvious than that, or does it? How about when the Pope said that Christians should apologize to gay people? Remember that back in the year 2016? The Pope came out and said that all Christians should apologize to gay people. He said the church should ask for forgiveness from gays for past treatment, right? In addition to that, transgender people can be baptized Catholic and serve as grandparents, according to the Vatican. These are some of the accomplishments that happened under the Pope's watch. We've seen him obviously outside waving the pride flag, and we've even heard the Pope in the past claiming that a relationship with Jesus was dangerous without a church, saying Christians are not made in a laboratory, but in a community called the church. Even though it says clearly in John chapter 14, verse 6, Jesus saith unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. Well, of course, in today's world, they want you to think that you have to show up at a church in order to have salvation, when salvation is obtained through Christ and Christ alone. And we've even had the Pope talking about the wars that are going on and saying that they're not religious wars, right? Because, of course, he wants to make sure people aren't thinking in terms of spirituality and the spiritual war that we deal with on a day in, day out basis as followers of Christ. He wants you to think in terms of the wars that come directly out of the Vatican. You know, the wars that the Vatican and Israel create, control, and make. Yeah, so the Pope, of course, doesn't want you thinking in terms of spirituality. And then maybe one of my favorite things over the years that I've covered with the Pope, if you want the truth in plain sight, is when the Pope united and said we needed to bring about a one world religion. He talked about all children of God being one and believing in love, right? Not in salvation through Jesus Christ, even showing you all the religions merging together. Here is the video if you've never seen it before, which just really should be enough to open anyone's eyes about how the Pope is just the same as all these other globalists working to bring about one world everything, one world order, one world currency, one world religion.
La mayor parte de los habitantes del planeta se declaran creyentes. Esto debería provocar un diálogo entre las religiones. No debemos dejar de orar por él y colaborar con quienes piensan distinto.
Confío en Buda.
Creo en Dios.
Creo en Jesucristo.
Creo en Dios, Alá.
Muchos piensan distinto, sienten distinto, buscan a Dios o encuentran a Dios de diversa manera. En esta multitud, en este abanico de religiones, hay una sola certeza que tenemos para todos. Todos somos hijos de Dios.
Creo en el amor.
Creo en el amor. Creo en el amor.
creo en el amor.
Confío en vos para difundir mi petición de este mes, que el diálogo sincero entre hombres y mujeres de diversas religiones conlleve frutos de paz y justicia. Confío en tu oración.
So, of course, from there, we've had the Pope even come out recently in 2024 and say that all religions are a path to God. And of course, I just read John chapter 14, verse 6, right? Jesus said unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. So it makes it kind of hard to connect the dots there with how all religions are a path to God. But here he is even talking about that out in the open. And still Catholics or followers of the Pope still refuse to listen to the words that these people say, or this specific person says, which expose them as nothing more than minions of Satan.
Le religioni sono un cammino per arrivare a Dio.
Because every religion is a way to arrive at God.
Sono, dirò una comparazione, sono come diverse lingue, diversi idiomi per arrivare lì.
Sort of a comparison, an example would be they're sort of like different languages in order to arrive at God.
Ma Dio è Dio per tutti.
But God is God for all.
E come Dio è Dio per tutti, noi siamo tutti figli di Dio.
And if God is God for all, then we're all sons and daughters of God.
Ma il mio Dio è più importante del tuo.
But my God is more important than your God.
È vero quello?
Is that true?
C'è un solo Dio lì. E noi sono idiomi, cammino, lingue per arrivare a Dio.
There's only one God, and each of us is a language, so to speak, in order to arrive at God.
Qualcuno è Sikh, qualcuno musulmano, qualcuno
Sikh, Muslim,
Hindi, qualcuno cristiano.
Hindu,
Sono
Christian.
diversi cammini.
There are different paths.
Understood?
No, that should be clear enough for people, but if they need more, I have more, right? Remember the Pope talking about the globalization, bringing about globalization and indifference being a very ugly disease, right? And he started talking about things like, hey, we need to snuff out any resurgence in anti-Semitism, addressing anti-Semitism in the church as people who speak out, possibly by using Bible verses that actually say what the Pharisees are and who they are, or the book of Revelation referring to the synagogue saying, well, the Pope doesn't want you thinking in those terms. You're not supposed to read that or interpret it that way. You're supposed to interpret everything the way that they tell you to interpret it, which is love and tolerance and acceptance, and everybody belongs and everybody's going to heaven. Hey, all you got to do is open a door for an old woman and you're going to get to heaven, right? These are the types of things that they've been beating into people's minds over the last decade or so. And this is when the Bible talks about the lukewarming of the church. You're seeing it around you because of people like the Pope, right? The Pope warned against hate fomenting fake news, right? Of course, no real definition on fake news. Of course, they like you to think that fake news is anyone who disagrees with the mainstream media, which isn't even fake news. It's not real news. It's fully manufactured news. The Pope has rubbed shoulders with celebrities because that makes sense, right? We're supposed to believe he's anointed by God. He's hanging out with, well, Leonardo DiCaprio, right? United Nations member, World Economic Forum attender, got that little red bracelet right on his wrist while he's meeting with the Pope, right? Or Barry Soetoro, right? Barack Obama meeting with the Pope. But you're going to tell me, right, the president has to meet with the Pope because the president's got to meet with the Pope. But it makes sense somehow that Leonardo DiCaprio met with the Pope. Why? Is the Pope a big fan of Titanic? Is that why? Huh? Pope meeting with George Clooney. Well, these people out in the open are not Christians, so why would they ever want to meet with the Pope in the first place, right? How about Martin Scorsese, right? A person who made a film, The Last Temptation of Christ, was one of the most blasphemous films to ever be created. Of course, Martin, also known for being one of the high priests in Satanism in Hollywood, who obviously we know is not a Christian, not just because of The Last Temptation of Christ, but we know what, well, the Synagogue of Satan, of course, that he is a member of. Mark Zuckerberg meeting with the Pope. Is he a Christian, a follower of Christ? Of course not. He really likes to meet with these people who are famous, who are part of big tech. What in the world? Wouldn't you think to yourself, if this guy was chosen by God, that he was a voice piece for the church, that he be meeting with, why is he meeting with these people who are all part of the same bloodlines? Well, because he's a part of the same bloodlines, meeting with Tim Cook, right, of Apple. What are they talking about? Maybe the mark of the beast, right? Maybe saying, hey, how about that first computer that you guys sold for $666.66? Was he talking to him about that? Because the first Apple computer, or how about the logo for Apple, which is a forbidden fruit, is what it represents, the biting of the forbidden fruit. Was that what they were talking about when they met, right? Or maybe even when he met with the queen herself, right? The Pope has obviously done it all, and he's met with everyone, right? And don't forget the ritual that was done of the 5 sacred portals on Christmas Eve this past year, a ritual that's never been done before. Remember that at St. Peter's Basilica, where he knocked on those doors, and, well, they gave us a map of where those locations were going to be, the basilicas that they were going to be doing this portal opening at, and if you actually turned and, drew lines through the map, you get what? Well, you get this sigil of Satan, right? A very prominent symbol in the occult, even tattooed on Marilyn Manson's hand. And last but not least, of all the things that I remember from the Pope over the last 10 years or so, is recently when the Pope came out and said that the Vatican was going to be the do-all, end-all for spiritual discernment on supernatural phenomena as they prepare people for Project Bluebeam. So when they do something in the sky, like simulate the second coming in the sky, well, people are going to turn to the Vatican and say, is that Jesus coming in the sky? Or is it some type of UFO phenomenon? And of course, we know the Vatican will be prepared to lead greater deceptions than they've already led. And they will tell people that these things that they're seeing in the sky, while the Pope has been meeting with all these big tech companies and all of these people who are technocrats and want to bring about a new world order, just like the Pope does, well, he's going to tell you that anything in the sky that they see is, in fact, the second coming of Jesus. So we can prepare for great deceptions coming from the Vatican, all thanks from the preparation that Pope Francis has done. So we look back, and of course, this is all about the Pope exiting the world stage at 88 years old. Like I mentioned in my previous video, the same age of Klaus Schwab, who on the same day decided to step down from the World Economic Forum and retire from his position, even on the board of council there. We have the Pope over the years doing all sorts of satanic imagery, from the hidden hand to some of the images, that the one I showed you with Zelensky and the Antichrist, the 666, to the devil horns, to being put on Time magazine with the devil horns on his head, even saying he's the devil himself, invoking Lucifer during an actual mass in which he was in attendance for. And don't forget, you're supposed to apologize and ask forgiveness for gay people for past treatment, and allowing the transgender community to be baptized inside of the Catholic Church. He's waving his pride flag, telling you that it's dangerous to have a personal relationship with Jesus, that you need the church in order to do that. I mean, the things that he said, and most obviously, of course, that commercial that the Vatican aired, where they talked about all the religions merging as one, because that is what the New World Order is. It's a one world everything, currency, one world language, one world gender, one world religion, all under the Antichrist's rule. So the Pope has exited the stage. If you want to see my other video where I talk about the Pope prophecies, it's available again on my Nations Conspire channel, which you could find linked below. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless all of you and your families as always.